window, we'll just start by adding a title. If you saw, I just said TK, so we'll add a title. So like I said, since we inherited from tk.tk, we have access to all of its methods, and the way you set the title is what the title method. So now we can say self.title, even though view doesn't have a title method because the only method that we have is main. tk.tk has a title method, and view inherits from that object, so we have access to its title method. So if you see here in Eclipse, it brings up what the method is and some little helpful information over here. It says set the title of this widget. So in this case, it's the main window, and it takes in a string, and we're just going to call this PyCalc 1.0. So that would be the title of our window. So let's just run this again. So now you see, instead of just TK, it says PyCalc 1.0. So like I said, we're mostly going to start with the view, with what you see. So we're going to put some stuff into the window. And like I said, we're going to be implementing a calculator similar to the one that's on the iPhone, the portrait version. So the first thing we're going to want is an entry at the top, which is where the numbers will be displayed. So we'll make another method here. I'll put it after the main method. So we're going to make a method to basically create the entry. So we'll just call it make entry. And then in Python, there's no private method enforcement like in Java, but the convention is to use single underscores. So when you have a method that's only going to be used by this class, it's not going to be called outside of this object, you would prefix it by a single underscore, which essentially means it's only going to be used by other methods in view. So even though we have an instance of view and controller, we're not going to call over here self.view underscore make entry. We can call self.view.main. But like I said, Python doesn't enforce it. You could technically call over here self.view underscore make entry and it would still execute. But this is the convention used, and usually when you have external libraries and you see methods like this and you see a method prefixed by an underscore, then that's what kind of tells you you're not supposed to use that method. So we'll make this method to create the entry, and then we'll call it from the init method. So we'll say actually first, before that, we'll make a frame, kind of our main frame, so that we can put padding around all of the sides. So before that, we'll make a method called make main frame, and we'll call that before our make entry. So I'll just call this FRM, short for frame, and then, like I said, TK has a a frame class, but TTK also has one as well. And this one, there's not many differences, or at least visual differences, like buttons or combo boxes. But just keep it consistent, we'll just use TTK. And the parent is going to be self, which again, the view class inherits from tk.tk. So when we say self, we're actually putting this frame in that window that we just saw earlier. And there's actually 3 geometry managers in Tkinter, which basically say how are you going to organize your layout in widgets. There's place, which uses a coordinate system. So like, let's say you wanted to put a button in the middle of a frame that was 100 by 100 pixels. So you would say place this button at 100 pixels to the left and then 100 pixels down. And then there's the grid method, which uses a sort of rows and columns framework, where you would put a button on row 3, column 2, and it spans 2 rows, 1 column. And then there's what I'm going to use is called pack. I found that pack is better, especially when you're getting into more complex interfaces. Pack works basically like just packing everything into the window. So that's what we're going to use. So now that we've created that frame, we're going to pack it. And then you can give options when you pack it, as we'll see later. But for now, well, actually we do need some options for this one. So like I said, we're creating this main frame mainly to create a padding around the main window. So I'll create a class variable up here. And a class variable is essentially a variable that's not going to be specific to any one instance. It's going to be shared by all instances. So if we were going to create like 2 calculators, and we were going to create 2 instances of view, then this variable would only be initialized once. And that just kind of saves a little bit of memory. And since it's just going to be a constant, we don't need to initialize it for each instance. So now that we have that variable pad10, the the horizontal padding option is pad x. So we'll say pad x equals, let's say self.pad. And then we'll do the same thing for the vertical. So we'll say pad y. So now we've created a main frame and we've put some padding around it, both vertical and horizontal. So now that we have the main frame, that's where we're going to pack all of our other widgets. So we can go back to making our entry. So again, we'll use TTK. Like I said, TK also has an entry, but we'll keep using TTK. And then this one, instead of putting it in self, which would put it into the main window, we're going to put it into our main frame that we just created. So we'll say, so we're going to have to make this an attribute of the class in order to access that from this method. So we'll say self.mainFrame. If we didn't need to access it in any of the other methods, we could have just left it that way and it would have still been added to the window. But in this case, we do need to access it from this method. So we need to make it an attribute of the view class. So now we can access it over here and say our entry is going to be in the main frame. And then we'll pack that. And then this one, we don't need to make an attribute of the class.